Greetings, one and all, to the most cursed, most cringiest corner of the internet. A YouTube channel content creator actively alienating everyone, in both the analog and digital world. Well, welcome and good evening, you wonderful dice of all alignments. I'm Lunar D8, your tsundere streamer who doesn't stream. We are reading The Tragedy of X by Ellery Queen, Act 2, Scene 8. The Exchange Club, Friday, September 11, noon. Mr. Drury Lane made a grand entrance, unpremeditated to be sure. It was simply a matter of walking into the leathery atmosphere of the Exchange Club on Wall Street, and ipso facto creating something of a furor. Three men discussing heated golf on a lounge recognized him as if by signal, and the Scottish game was obscured in a blur of whispers. The eyes of a colored attendant rolled wildly at the sight of the cape. A clerk behind the desk looked startled and dropped his pen. The word spread with the rapidity of a bullish rumor. Men began to stroll by, attempting to appear unconcerned, but glancing curiously at Lane's odd figure out of the corners of their eyes. Lane sat down with a sigh in a club chair in the foyer. A white-haired man hurried up and bowed as low as his circumference would permit. "Good day, Mr. Lane, good day." Lane smiled briefly. "This is an honor, sir. I'm the chief steward. Is there anything I can do for you, sir? A cigar, perhaps?" Lane's fingers rose in a protesting gesture. "No, thank you so much, steward. No, thank you so much, steward. My throat, you know." It seemed to be an old ritual for him, because the words, although pleasant, were utterly mechanical. "I am waiting for Mr. DeWitt. Has he come in?" "Mr. DeWitt? I don't believe he has, Mr. Lane. I don't believe he has." The steward's tone implied that Mr. DeWitt was to be severely censured for keeping Mr. Drury Lane waiting. "In the meantime, I'm entirely at your disposal, sir. You are very kind." Lane leaned back and closed his eyes in dismissal. The steward looked very proud, stepped back, and tampered with his necktie. At this moment, the slight, frail figure of John DeWitt hastened into the foyer. The broker was pale. There was something of apprehension on his features, an added strain, a new pressure from within. He obeyed the smiling gesture of the steward without changing expression, and walked quickly across the foyer towards Lane, followed by envious glances. The steward said, "Here's Mr. DeWitt, sir," and seemed hurt by Lane's lack of response. It was not until DeWitt motioned him away and touched Lane's hard shoulder that the actor opened his eyes. "Ah, DeWitt," he said with pleasure, and sprang to his feet. "Sorry to have kept you waiting, Mr. Lane," said DeWitt constrainedly. "I had another appointment. Had to break it. Delayed me." "Not another word," said Lane, whipping off his cape. A uniformed Negro hurried up and took Lane's cape, hat, and stick. DeWitt's coat and hat with the dexterity of a genie. The two men followed the steward through the foyer into the club dining room, where a head waiter, roused out of his professional nonchalance, broke out in smiles and conducted them, at DeWitt's request, to a secluded part of the dining room. Throughout a light luncheon, DeWitt toyed with his fillet, while Drury Lane ate robustly a solid chunk of roast beef. Lane refused to be tempted into serious discussion. DeWitt made repeated efforts to discover the purpose of Lane's rendezvous. Lane countered with, "Unquiet meals make ill digestions," and let it go at that. DeWitt smiled in a half-hearted way, and Lane continued to talk easily, smoothly, as if there were nothing weightier on his mind than the proper method of masticating English beef. He recounted several intimate reminiscences of his early days on the stage, his sentences punctuated with illustrious theatrical names: Otis Skinner, William Faversham, Booth, Mrs. Fisk, Ethel Barrymore, and as they ate, DeWitt's rigidity softened before the smooth, pregnant conversation of the old actor, and he found himself listening with enjoyment. Some of the tension left him, and Lane chatted on without seeming to notice. Over coffee, and after DeWitt had accepted equitably enough Lane's refusal of a cigar, Lane said, "I can see, Mr. DeWitt, that you are not by nature a morose or morbid man." DeWitt was startled but puffed his cigar without replying. "It is not a feat of psychiatrics to read from your physiognomy and recent actions a sad winter's tale. Mental depression, chronic perhaps, but alien to your character." DeWitt murmured, "In some respects I've had a hard life, Mr. Lane." "Then I was correct." Lane's voice became persuasive. His long hands were flat on the tablecloth, perfectly motionless. DeWitt's eyes were fixed on them as on a focal point. "Mr. DeWitt, my primary reason for spending an hour in conversation with you is a friendly one. I feel that I should know you better. I feel that in my own blundering way, perhaps, I may be able to help you. I feel, in fact, that you require help of no common variety." "That's decent of you," said DeWitt drearily, without raising his eyes. "I realize well enough the dangerous position I'm in. Neither the district attorney nor Inspector Thum has deceived me in the slightest. I am being constantly watched. I have the feeling that even my correspondence is being tampered with. You yourself, Mr. Lane, have been questioning my servants." "Only your butler, Mr. DeWitt, and entirely in your interests. And so is Thum, so you see, I know where I'm at. And, on the other hand, I sense that you're a little different from the police. More human," he shrugged. "You may be surprised, but I'm thinking of you a good deal since Wednesday night. You stepped into the breach several times in my defense." Lane's face was grave. "Would you mind, then, if I asked you a question or two? My concern with this investigation is not official. It is personally motivated and only with the end in view of getting the truth. There are some things I must know if I am to make further progress." DeWitt looked up swiftly. "Further progress? Have you reached any conclusions already, Mr. Lane?" "Two fundamental ones, Mr. DeWitt." Drury Lane beckoned a waiter, who ran up excitedly and ordered another pot of coffee. DeWitt's cigar had gone out. It drooped from his fingers, forgotten as he stared at Lane's profile. Lane smiled faintly. "I must commit an impropriety and defer from a beautiful lady. A false prediction, Mr. DeWitt. Madame de Savange might as well have prophesied the ephemerality of immortal Shakespeare as of immortal coffee." He continued in the same mild tone. "I know who killed Longstreet and Wood, if you would term that progress." DeWitt paled as if Lane had struck him in the face. The cigar snapped between his fingers. He blinked under Lane's serene gaze and choked back a lump of amazement, fighting for self-possession. "You know who killed Longstreet and Wood," he said in a strangled voice. "But my God, Mr. Lane, if you know, aren't you going to do something about it?" I still say there's a lot of hentai games like Corruption of Champions 2 that have like so much good writing in them. Like, it'd be nice to be able to read that for a video, but no. Not only can I not show anything, but I'm pretty sure the descriptions, while very well written, honestly, I'd be blushing while saying them, and I feel like they would still be too inappropriate for YouTube. Lane said gently, "I am doing something about it, Mr. DeWitt." Mr. DeWitt did not move. "Unfortunately, we are dealing with literal-minded justice. She demands tangible instruments of conviction. Will you help me?" DeWitt did not reply for a long time. His face was tortured now. His eyes frantically sought to penetrate the blank mask of this unusual prosecutor, as if to probe and discover how much he knew, precisely what he knew. Then he said in the same tight voice, "If only I could, if I only dared, Mr. DeWitt." It was all melodramatic and somehow shoddy. Deep within the actor's body, a little worm of repugnance stirred. DeWitt kept silent. Again he studied Lane's eyes, as if he sought the name of a murderer there. Finally he struck a match and applied it to the dead end of his cigar with unsteady fingers. "I'll tell you what I can, Mr. Lane, but how shall I say it? My hands are, well, tied. There's one thing you simply mustn't ask me, the identity of the person with whom I had an appointment Wednesday night." Lane shook his head good-humoredly. "You make it doubly difficult, Mr. DeWitt, by maintaining silence on one of the most interesting points in the case. However, we will waive that." He paused. "For the present, I understand, Mr. DeWitt, that both you and Longstreet made your fortunes in South America in some mining venture, that you came to the States together and set up a brokerage business requiring considerable capital. I take it then that your mine was something of a bonanza. That was before the war, I believe." "Yes." "In what country of South America was your mine located?" "Uruguay." "Uruguay. Quite so." Lane half closed his eyes. "Mr. Maquanchow is a Uruguayan, then?" DeWitt's mouth opened. His eyes clouded with suspicion. "How do you know about Maquanchow?" he demanded. "Jorgens, of course. That cursed old fool. I should have told him." Lane said sharply, "The wrong attitude entirely, Mr. DeWitt. Jorgens, an estimable man and a faithful servant, was willing to give me information solely because he was under the impression that I asked in your interest. You can do no less than emulate him, unless you question my purpose." No, I'm sorry. Yes, Maquanchow is an Uruguayan." DeWitt was in agony. His eyes fluttered from side to side, the old wildness in them again. "But Mr. Lane, please don't press me about Maquanchow." "But I must press you, Mr. DeWitt." Lane's glance was naked now. "Who is Maquanchow? What is his business? How explain his unique activity while he was your guest? I am determined, sir, to have the answers to these questions." DeWitt traced a meaningless pattern on the cloth with a spoon, speaking in a muffled tone. "If you insist. Nothing at all out of the ordinary, purely a business visit, Mr. Lane. Maquanchow is the scout for the certain South American public utility locations. Wanted our office to handle the floating of a bond issue. You see, perfectly legitimate enterprise, And did you decide with Mr. Longstreet to help float this bond issue, Mr. DeWitt?" asked Lane without expression. "Well, we had the matter under consideration." Round and round went DeWitt's spoon, busy with a geometric pattern on the cloth. Angles, curves, rectangles, rhomboids. "You have the matter under consideration?" repeated Lane dryly. "Why did he stay so long?" "Well, I'm sure I don't know, unless he visited other financing institutions." "Can you give me his address?" "Why, I don't believe I know exactly. He travels extensively. He's never long in one place." Lane chuckled suddenly. "You are a poor liar, Mr. DeWitt, and since I see it is quite futile to pursue this conversation further, let us end it here before you become so entangled in your own mendacity that you will embarrass me as much as yourself. Good day, Mr. DeWitt, and believe me when I say that your attitude is a rude commentary on my vaunted capacity for judging human nature." Lane rose. A waiter jumped forward as if on springs and grasped the chair. Lane smiled in his direction, examined DeWitt's lowered head, and said in the same amiable voice, "Nevertheless, you are welcome at the Hamlet, my place on the Hudson, at any time when you have changed your mind. Good day, sir." He moved away, leaving DeWitt in the crushed attitude of a man who has heard sentence of execution passed upon him. As he threaded his way among the tables, preceded by the head waiter, Lane paused a moment, smiled to himself, and then resumed his march out of the dining room. Not far from the table which DeWitt still sat, a man was dining. The man had a red face, looked uneasy, and during the entire conversation between Lane and DeWitt had strained forward, ears cocked, in a shameless attempt to eavesdrop. In the foyer, Lane tapped the head waiter's shoulder, that red-faced man near the table at which Mr. DeWitt and I were seated. "Is he a member?" The head waiter looked disturbed. "Oh, no, sir. A detective. He forced his way in with his badge." Lane smiled again, pressed a banknote into the man's hand, and walked with leisurely steps to the desk. The clerk pranced forward. "Will you please direct me first to Dr. Morris, your club physician, and then to the club secretary," said Mr. Drury Lane.